Hey, Immaterial World listeners, we know you're always doing the work, committed to your practices around personal exploration, curiosity, and spiritual wellness.
We've partnered this season with Wiser Books, who work with so many creators and with titles across spirituality, relationships, mysticism, mindfulness, and more. Like Secrets of Romani Fortune Telling, you'll certainly find alignment with what's next for you in your journey.
For those in the immaterial world, use code immaterial30 at checkout on redwheelwiser.com, linked in the show notes. That's immaterial30 for 30% off your purchase through the end of March. Happy exploring. Welcome to Immaterial World,
a dedicated and transparent space to recenter how we explore glamour, magic, culture, and everything else we love together.
Immaterial world, come meet me in the immaterial world. As far as the galaxy goes, we're flying in the immaterial world. Immaterial world, come meet me in the immaterial world. With mind and body and soul, we're flying in the immaterial world. The immaterial world.
Cameron Allen is an herbalist and astrologer who sits at the crossroads of medical, traditional, and evolutionary astrology. He synthesizes wisdom from his training in Ayurveda, Kundalini, yoga, and mixed movement arts, holds degrees in health and sports science and psychology with a focus on sports and exercise psychology, and is currently in school for Greco-Arabic Medicine. Cameron has trained with teachers of lineages who have not been named here, but honors them nonetheless. All of these traditions, systems of healing, and ways of knowing are rooted into a focus on being centered on how to be of service at any given moment.
Oh, we are so excited to meet our guest today, who, upon his first email to us, had a psychic revelation that Jez and I were both like, ooh, yes, very much we were thinking about that. So we're so excited to welcome Cameron Allen here today. Cameron, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. I've been looking forward to this conversation.
Amazing. We're going to talk about a lot of things, but I want to start off by asking what your big three are.
Yeah, totally. So Sagittarius rising, Aquarius sun, conjunct the North Node, and then Gemini moon.
Ah,
yes.
Yeah,
but I have a Capricorn stellium though, so that can be a little,
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's a bit different. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm also a Gemini moon, so I love that placement very much.
Yeah. Mhm.
So we would love to chat too about the path that took you to where you are today. What have been your greatest influences? How did you get here?
Yeah, so I got here because I did a ceremony with my very first teacher. Her name is Norma De Jesus. And in that ceremony, I basically asked for all the mundane things in my life that were unnecessary to move out of my way so I can go down my spiritual path. And 2 days after that, I got fired from my job. And then like a week and a half after that, I started working at a spiritual supply store. And when I started working in the spiritual supply store, I started working with the herbs in the back in an apothecary. We have like over 200 herbs in the apothecary that I work at. And I just started working with the herbs. And soon thereafter, maybe like 3 months after that, like I had a dream and it was saying, I need to go to Portland, Oregon. And then I went to Portland, Oregon, and I met my first medical astrology teacher, Judith Hill and Saja Popham there. And I just started doing astrology from there pretty much. That's the super dwindled down version of it. That's how it all started, though. There's so many things outside of that, but I'll keep it super simple and sweet and say that.
Did you have a childhood path through spirituality that had you interested early, or what brought you into this place?
Yeah, great question. So I was working at a level 4 lockdown facility for youth, and basically what happened is like spontaneously knew how to like cast a demon away from one of the kids. And so that happened, and I was like, okay, I don't know what reality is. And so it just took me down that pathway all like full force. I mean, in college, I started having some things happen. I was studying psychology in college because I have a degree in health and sports science and psychology. And I was studying like alchemy, and I was writing all these papers on Carl Jung. And so that's how I was introduced to the planets and started getting into anything occult. Like, yeah, like a super buff football player, like reading alchemy books, like looking over my shoulder, making sure nobody knew I was a super nerd.
I
So
love
yeah,
that.
that's kind of how I got into it. Yeah, that's how I got into it. But when I was younger, though, no, I mean, I did have some spiritual experiences, but they were kind of few and far between. I know when I was like 7 years old, um, I was in my neighborhood in Philadelphia, and this like big white husky ran after me, and it chased me, and it like flipped me over, and I like hit the back of my head, and I ran from outside all the way up to my bedroom, and I prayed, and like only way I can describe it now is that the Holy Spirit came to me in that moment. And then something happened, like, and when I was in like 6th grade, I like basically saw like a portal open up in the middle of like the school, and I was just like in the middle of the hallway. I was in line, actually. I was in line with all the other kids. And then the next moment I like had this experience. And then the next moment I snapped out of it. My teacher was like, "What the hell are you doing in the middle of the hallway?" Basically, like get in the classroom. And then from there, I don't think I really had any experiences till like college again. So yeah, it was like few and far between, but things were happening for sure and kind of foreshadowing what was to come.
Wow. Have you ever looked at your chart to see if you had any interesting transits that were happening around those times?
Not when I was younger, but when I was in college, though, Pluto was going over everything pretty much because Pluto went through Capricorn, so it went over my Mars, it went over my Uranus, it went over my Neptune. It was going over Neptune when all the things started happening in college, and then it went over my Saturn, Mercury, Venus retrograde as well through time, and so that's been the process since Pluto's been on my Neptune, and then ever since then, pretty much as I've just been all up in spirituality for sure.
That's so interesting to just. I've just been getting into looking at what transits were happening at what times, and it's been so wild to me as someone who's learning astrology. New, was raised with different divination forms. I'm just like, damn, it lines up. Like this is so exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
So interesting.
It always checks out. Looking back, it always checks out when I have looked back on things.
Yeah. It's wild. So we love to start with some definitions, especially since listeners, may not be familiar with exactly what you do. Could you tell us a little bit about the difference between modern, traditional, evolutionary versus medical astrology?
Yeah, for sure. So when we say modern astrology, there's a lot of things that we could say. But when I say modern astrology, a lot of times I just think of like psychological astrology. So it's basically like empowerment or self-help or just getting into the psyche or understanding personality or ego dynamics having to do with astrology and helping people. Yeah, just kind of a tool for self-understanding. That's the way I usually look at modern astrology. And when I think about evolutionary astrology, I think of it as more as like a soul level astrology, which definitely still has a strong psychological lean to it, but in that tradition, it does specifically talk about like how people are coming into this life from past lives and moving towards future lives and things like this. I don't necessarily have that take from my own perspective anymore necessarily, but it's still there, and I still like appreciate that tradition very strongly. And then we have traditional astrology, which I used to think of it as more just like concrete astrology, where it's more like helping people plan things out and like being able to answer a question and things like this. And so I had a more concrete approach to it. But as I've learned more it does have a lot of things in it that can talk about different dynamics of the personality as well, and also talk about people's spiritual path. And then medical astrology essentially is a wellness through astrology. That's the way I like to think of it, just to keep it super simple. So even when I do my little spiel, I just say like I use medical astrology for the physical body. I use traditional astrology for like the practical things in life. And then I use evolutionary astrology to work with the emotional, psychological dynamics that people are going through. And I synthesize those things in any particular order is necessary for any particular present moment in time.
That makes a lot of sense. That's so cool.
Yeah, I love that. And because you're combining multiple modalities in your work, so it's not just the modalities of the different types of astrology, but then on top of that, you're blending in herbalism, you're blending in movement and so many. I mean, where does someone even start with you? When they come to you, what's going on with them? What are they looking for? What are you going to do with them?
Yeah.
I mean, are they just like, help? I don't know where to start.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So this is why like it was really important for me to have these like specific, very specific different services and or offerings, because depending on that, that's kind of the frame or the container in which people enter into. And I also have an herbalism practice in Memphis, Tennessee, where in Memphis it's interesting because I'm known around the world for astrology and medical astrology, but in Memphis, Tennessee, I'm not really known as the astrology guy. I mean, there's no astrology person that's necessarily known in Memphis as that in Memphis. I'm more known as an herbalist there. But so like I have a general consultation, which is just like anything anybody wants to talk about. So I'll use any tool that I need based off of what's going on in the chart there. I have like a one that's like a Saturnian session, which is like really like a really like serious, like I'm about to show you your shit kind of session.
Oh, I have questions about that session.
Yeah, I think that one might be my favorite one. And I usually, before that session, I like work with my like Saturn talisman and tap in that way. And then I have the holistic health and astrology session, which is a medical astrology session that just adds in the components of all the various things that I do. You know, I did 200 hours of training in Kundalini yoga as well. So adding in potentially some different movement practices overall, but also some yogic practices. I'm also in school for Ayurveda right now, so it can include any like remedies and things like that. So that's just astrology and wellness. And then I have a solar return reading as well, just kind of casting the year forward and kind of seeing what the general idea of what's going to happen in the year. And even in my intake form, I do specifically ask people, are you looking for guidance or are you looking for like concrete things? And so seeing if they want to like really like know something in particular for what's going to happen for the year ahead, or if they're just looking for like what's kind of going on in general. So so my offerings kind of create the container. I also have an astro herbal consultation, which is more focused on let's look at the chart and see if there's any issues with health going on and what herbal allies might be present for you in the session. So I kind of use the specific offering to kind of give a container.
I want to go back to that Saturn session for a second, because I feel like for the uninitiated, that's going to be some tough love. That's going to be the thing that you might not want to hear. It's not like your astrology, daily horoscope. It's tough. Who's coming for those kind of readings, and what are they trying to gain from that?
Yeah, most people that come for that reading are just looking for a no nonsense kind of reading. Honestly, they just like want to be shown their stuff. And what's been an interesting development in it actually is that a lot of times in the Saturnian sessions, what ends up happening is that I'm like, it's not that I'm being actually gentle, but what needs to the Saturn medicine that's actually coming for them is the fact that they need to be. They need to have judgment removed. They need to actually understand what's going on in the reality and in a way that allows them to breed peace rather than be restricted by their own judgments. So there is still like this way in which I'm like, hey, like you got to look this in the face. But at the same time, there's this way in which I like alleviate them of their judgments.
I love that.
Mhm.
I do love a reading where someone just tells me all my stuff too. So I really love that you do that with a non-judgmental and kind lens because it's so helpful. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so as I've been nerding out about astrology, it's interesting to look at my own chart and try to make connections. And I was making a joke that like I have Chiron and Gemini in the first house. That must be why I have a lisp. And but seriously, I've dealt with chronic pain and illness since I was a kid. So that's another thing that I've been looking at my chart for to try to understand not just like why it might be showing up, but also what can I do, especially since Western medicine hasn't really given me too many helpful answers. And so I'm sure my like case is not unique in that sense. People must come to you with like mystery pains or traumatic experiences, all kinds of things that just sort of feel big and confusing and also important. So I was wondering what kind of key markers are you looking for in a chart when you're working with a client who's like, what's happening with these various like specific types of chronic issues?
Yeah, great question. So I don't want to answer this in a way that's not super complicated. Okay, so I would be looking for hard aspects. And for people who don't know what hard aspects are, we would say a hard aspect is a square, which is a 90-degree aspect, and then an opposition, which is a 180-degree aspect in connection to the moon. That would be the first place that I would go. So Saturn moon combinations, Mars moon combinations, the moon in combination with Chiron, Uranus, Neptune, and or Pluto as well. That might be the first place that I would look to. But I also would look to the ascendant and the ascendant ruler and see like where the ascendant ruler is. And if the ascendant ruler is in a hard aspect with Mars or Saturn as well, those are things that can come up. Neptune in the 12th house and the 6th house is really strong with things where it's like amorphous or they're like, I don't know what's going on here, right? And like that could show up as like antibiotic trauma, that could show up as mold issues at youth or at a certain point in life that create an issue, that can show up as issues or complications having to do with root canals, heavy metal toxicity, things like this show up with Neptune in the 6th house oftentimes. Chiron in the 1st house definitely is a signature there for sure. Those are some signatures that I would start with if I was like reading the intake form and somebody said they had something going on chronically. Those would be the first places I would look.
That's so fascinating. Also, I mean, you're really intuitive. Like, I mean, I was so excited when you reached out and were like, "Have y'all thought about?" And I was like, "Yes, we've been talking exactly about that." And I love that you were so confident to just reach out and be like, "I had a psychic download," which not everyone would do, even if they do this professionally. So
Yeah.
I'm also curious, how does your intuition work with this? Because you obviously know your stuff very thoroughly, but then intuition is the other part of it. What's that like for you?
Yeah, I think I've gotten more and more scholarly as I've come along. Whereas in the beginning, I did start out more intuitive. I think evolutionary astrology, even though there is a science to it, I do think that like people tend to navigate that very intuitively. Even when we think about looking at the nodes and Pluto, my first teacher of evolutionary astrology, named Mark Jones, he would even say, like, allow yourself to dream into the chart. And so like it would be working with like images. And so images would start to arise and then the story would start to unravel and unfold based off of that. So it's pretty much always been an intuition thing in there. And then as I've gone along and gotten into like traditional astrology, I've just gotten more and more concrete. So I would say they inform one another, right? Like it's like the plasmic field of intuition can like allow the information to be projected or to be translated, or the information can be infused with the plasmic field of intuition, so it can be either or. I don't even think of them as separate. Even right now, as I'm saying it, like I'm closing my eyes and like moving my hands in like a spherical shape because that's how I actually experience it. These things are intertwining and there's a dynamic interplay between them. But when it comes to my intuition, though, it really is just about like what I'm feeling in my body because I spent a lot of time in my bathroom with the lights off, with headphones on, and just drinking tea. And from there, I started being able to feel certain areas of my body that are telling me very specific things. And then I also would say claircognizance, clairgustance, so taste coming in my mouth or smells coming in my nose or just a knowing kind of imprinting upon me. These are the ways that I oftentimes experience, my intuition.
That is fascinating. I don't meet a lot of people who have clairgustance and clairalience as like their main, the smelling and the tasting as their as major psychic senses. And that's just so cool because I often teach classes about intuition and go through the senses and give examples. And now I'm going to direct people to your work when I give examples.
Yeah. And I'll work with them and then I probably would direct them to my partner because my partner in the clairs, she just is like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, she's on a different level, to be quite honest.
Who's your partner?
But
We'll drop her links.
yeah. Her name is Ashley, but they like lunar_crystalline is her Instagram. So yeah, go check her out. Amazing work. Yeah.
Oh, fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
We started to talk about your work with herbalism, and this is how you're known. But I want to go back to that beginning story, and you're working in the apothecary shop, and there's 200 herbs that you're starting to work with. What was your path through that? Because I would imagine that your intuition is also heavily leading you to be guided in this way as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I first started working at the apothecary, because Memphis, I mean, people oftentimes when they think of the South and they think about spirituality, a lot of times like the big thing people think about is Louisiana and or like New Orleans, and it's right up the river, the Mississippi River, and Memphis has a lot of hoodoo tradition there. And so really it just started out with me just asking people, what does this do? What does that do? What does this do? What does that do? And then also just like wise women who have worked with herbs for like their whole life and go to even like they're like they go to church and they still practice hoodoo on the low, and they would just like they would just share their wisdom with me, and that's pretty much how it started. And also I went to school at the School of Evolutionary Herbalism, and my teacher Sage Papam always invited us to really be with the plants and learn how to open up your heart field and your heart perception so that you can get information directly from the plants, which also serves really well for working with people and planets as well. And so, yeah, just like making sure that my heart is open, but even more than that for me, for anybody who's into human design, I'm a projector. So learning how to like be empty. For me, it's really just about being empty. And when I'm empty, then the information can come in. And then from there, I would just kind of like trial and error it. I would be like, I'm feeling this. Try this for a week, just giving people small amounts of things. Because obviously I was working at a spiritual supply store, so I could still open a book and know what was going on a decent amount. So after I've gathered enough information from people in general, I would just start inviting people to try certain things out. And then after that, I mean, I don't even know how much time it was, but after not that long of an amount of a time, every Saturday there would be like lines of people coming in, and I would just be just tapped in, just like firing off like everything that they needed to hear and know, just instinctually, and just trusting that, because what the hell is reality anyway? So I mean, like my whole identity was like changing, and I knew I didn't know anything, but I knew things were coming to me, and it was so bizarre that it was the only thing that made sense in life.
I love how supportive plants are in your journey too. I think that's so beautiful.
Okay, I wanted to talk a little about something. Before we started recording, we were talking about predictive divination and how this is not something that we love to do. And a lot of the practitioners that we speak with, it's sort of something that they do like secretly with their clients that they're close with after they have a rapport. It's not something that they try to put out there in the beginning. But in working with medical astrology and evolutionary astrology, just as Jez was saying, there's Chiron in Gemini in the first house. Is that why I have a list? I was really healthy my whole life. I never broke a bone, never really had any injuries, but I was assaulted in 2014, and I have Chiron in Taurus in the third house. I'm sorry, in the second house. And I had a lot of injuries in my face. Like I have a lot of problems with my teeth and my jaw and my nose. So I'm curious, when you're looking at charts, is this something that's necessarily part of the karma that is also brought into this lifetime, that you might have to experience that through your Chiron as well? I mean, I hate to make it sound like a final destination situation that, you're looking at all those transits like, uh-oh, when's it going to happen? But, is that something that you find when you're working with people?
Yeah, I think looking in retrospect at things has always allowed me, well, that is what allowed me to start being like, oh, wow, I'm full of shit. And what I mean by I'm full of shit is I was on team free will and it was just like a bit much, Like I think that was like more like my Western thinking or training that just like kind of like enveloped my mind. But astrology has shown me that fate and free will are consorts, they're lovers. And so when people do like the fate versus free will, it's just like, let's say it this way. It's very obvious when it's daytime when it's 2 p.m. It's very obvious it's night when it's 2 a.m. But there is twilight as well. Like when does day become day? When does night become night? And I think fate and free will work in this manner because there are times where there is like this twilight moment. And I also do believe that when I learned traditional astrology, what it showed me was that a lot of times transits by themselves will not be able to be potent enough to say if something's a yes or a no fully. The transit will always show it, but it doesn't say like it would. I wouldn't think I could predict with just transits. And so when it comes to even the potential of predicting something, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's like 4 or 5 layers of techniques that need to be done before something is concrete. And so that level of depth is just not something that is explored so much with astrology, but it makes it really obvious if I go through all these different layers and I'm like, let me look at their natal chart. Is their natal chart even suggesting this at all? Okay, that's interesting. Okay, now let's look at the time period of life they're in. What chapter are they in? What does that chapter say? Okay, that's interesting. That's also what the natal chart said. And now let's look at kind of this year. Okay, it's saying it again. That's super interesting. Now let's look at the solar return chart to see what will manifest. Okay, hey, let me tell you something real quick here. Like you might want to watch out for this, and then the transit comes around, tick, 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 and then it like can happen, So it can be that way. I don't lean towards wanting to predict something for someone. And in pretty much all my sessions in my intake forms, I even explicitly have like, are you looking for something concrete or not? Because I don't want to just tell somebody something and I'm not going and looking for anything. But sometimes now I just had to yield to the truth and like be humble enough to say that, hey, like sometimes I can see this thing happening. And so, yeah, that's my relationship with fate and free will. And so I will predict things, but I don't lean in that direction inherently. And also people come to me for surgery dates. So I need to be able to be right or wrong about that, like straight up, So it's like, it's not, I think sometimes when people are thinking about fate and free will, they're thinking about it from like their own perspective of agency and autonomy in some way and wanting to be the supreme center of the whole reality. And it's just like, respectfully, it's delusional. Because if a tsunami is going to come, it doesn't matter what the fuck my chart says or like what I think in my mind or anything like that. And also my ancestors have decreed me to do certain things in this life. And so that is fated. When people like think they have a destiny or they're meant for something, or even when people talk about their purpose, they have no problem being like, I'm meant to do this. Well, that's fate. But if you talk to them about fate, oftentimes they'll have a resistance to it. And I'm really interested in that resistance. I'm not necessarily interested in going back and forth or like bringing that up in conversations with clients, but I'm always interested in this dynamic where, people believe they have a specific purpose, but at the same time, they think they just have free will to do anything. And I think that is bizarre now at this point in my life.
Oh, I completely agree with you. It's like if you have that fate, you got to do the time along the way. There's certain things that are going to get you there. Some of them are not what you're hoping will be part of your free will.
Yeah.
And I think too that if people actually started to build a relationship with the idea or the feeling of fate and free will, then also you could start to put more free will and agency into fate to lean it in particular directions. And also, when you have full free will, you could be able to understand that you have autonomy in that time period as well.
Yeah, I love that so much. The tradition of divination that I was raised in, my grandmother, definitely, I'm not speaking for all Roma and not even all Roma who read fortunes, but she was really big into you got to dance with fate. There's a collaboration with God. Like spirit can reach out its hand, you can bat it away, but there are certain things that spirit can push you into, and like it's better to be open and listen to that collaboration. And like, yeah, fate and free will are not at odds. So I love hearing that too. It's so interesting to hear how other readers approach this because it's an interesting fabric that's woven between the two. Speaking of predictive energy, there are so many major outer planets moving into new signs this year. What are some things that we could be looking out for from a medical or evolutionary astrology perspective?
Yeah, from a medical perspective, I tend not to do like the medical transits kind of thing. But like the one thing that I have been like feeling into is with Uranus coming into Gemini. I mean, we already are being zapped by technology all the time, so just really inviting people to be mindful about their relationship with technology in general is one thing that I would say, and how the information that comes to us and how it comes to us can be like polarizing, right? So it's like we got this twin thing going on, we got the Uranus thing going on. So just being mindful not to allow yourself to be fragmented by polarizing information. And that comes into medical astrology from the perspective of watch your nervous system. And with Neptune in Aries, the thing that I've been really feeling into is people being essentially diluted by the collective field via anger and frustration. And so just being mindful around like, are you getting so swept up in the collective consciousness or the collective swirl of suffering or hopelessness or even ideal hopefulness that is like creating anger, really the hopelessness, yeah. So, and because anger can just do so many different things to the body, really, to be honest. Those are the two things that I would really emphasize in general. Oh, yeah, Pluto. Yeah. So Pluto and Aquarius too, something that for me, like I've just been focusing on and really wanting to put out into the world is also people's relationship with AI, right? And even like my guide specifically coming to me. So I don't even know if like this is about Pluto and Aquarius for everybody, or is it just a transmission that I'm supposed to be sharing? But when they're telling me AI, they're saying transmutation, Pluto, through ancestral intelligence, Aquarius, not AI, like AI, the robots and the technologies that we have now, but like looking back to find empowerment through the ancestral intelligence, which are as well technologies. So those are things that I've been feeling into in general. Not all medical, but that's what I feel with the outer planets.
So helpful to think about. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
I was curious in thinking about this. I know that you said you don't like to really predict on a more medical scale, but when we look back to certain periods of time, like in the 90s, there was a lot happening with antidepressants or, I'm thinking of like the proliferation of all of the movies and cultural touch points where we were talking about depression in a way we had never spoken about before. And fast forward to now where we're talking about GLP-1s and there's like a lot of things around body idealism. Is that tied into astrology in your mind in any way? Less on a predictive scale, but can we look back at that and say, oh, that must have been tied to some sort of planetary motion that was happening?
Yeah, and these specific ones that you're talking about right now, I'm hearing Neptune, really, to be honest, like with the antidepressants, like even just like Capricorn, when it was going, like in the 90s, it was going through Capricorn a whole lot there. And so, yeah, I mean, Capricorn is directly connected to like melancholy and or like depressive tendencies. So maybe the Neptune going through there and the pharmaceutical piece because Neptune does correspond to pharmaceuticals. That is coming really alive in me right now, and what you're saying, and then yeah, like Neptune going through Pisces, and just idealism in general, like a fantasy world of should, like what I should look like, and I could look like anything, and yeah, I mean that's what I'm feeling, but I don't really tap into that too much. I usually focus on like my local community and then specific people's charts, and working even more and more with like the land and like the spirits of the land, and my personal spirits. Yeah.
Hmm. What does it look like to do the work you do within the local community? Do you mean like looking at trends, how they affect everyone locally, or is it something else?
Yeah, so just I mean, really, I would just emphasize like transits, because sometimes that also is an easy way to learn astrology, right? Like I'm in an apothecary 5 days a week, and like when the transits are happening, I'm like, oh dang, like 15 people came in for a sore throat specifically this week, or
Oh,
like
wow.
like I'm like, oh wow, like it's all like women who like just got out of a relationship this week, or things like that coming up, really like also inform my practice, because it was like direct experience. I didn't have to think about it. I wasn't talking to people about the astrology necessarily. It was just watching the transits and then watching the people come in, or like the day that Venus goes into Libra, and like random women from out of town who are beautiful come into the shop. Like just things like that would just be so apparent, it's just be
Yeah.
so obvious sometimes. So that's what like way I like feel into it from like the local perspective.
Were the breakups during Venus and Virgo or the eclipses?
Yeah, or like Venus retro, yeah, eclipses for sure. That's such a huge thing. And then also that's what taught me too. Eclipses are like a no for like particular magics, because
Mhm.
I am a very like mad scientist, so I tried some stuff out. I'm not necessarily like I tried making medicines during that time just to see, because I wanted it to go in my body. I wanted to feel what the eclipse felt like, and everybody told me not to do it, but I did. And yeah, I remember I made an eclipse tincture, and I remember I took some of it, and like the next morning I woke up and I just had like all this crust around my eyes. And the eclipses have to do with eyes sometimes, because it's the sun and the moon, the luminaries, the lights, and so it had to do with the eyes. And after that, I threw that shit away, and I was like, say less. It's over. Like I know now for myself what everybody's been saying for all these years. So yeah, that's just like tangible things that would happen. Obviously, Venus retrograde, people talking about relationships and like having relationship problems, reviewing relationships, things like this would be very, very obvious. Mercury retrograde, I mean, I think people talked about it a lot, but I find that Mercury retrograde doesn't really do as much as people think it does most of the time. Yeah, and I think people would do well to look ahead for the year and actually see where is Mercury going retrograde in your chart, and you just start like plan to review those things already. Because Mercury retrograde doesn't really do that much most of the time, a lot of the time, or not as much as people hype it up to, but it's doing its thing now.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Thank you for explaining that. I makes sense now. I definitely, where I do tarot readings and things like that and palmistry, there can be trends, and I hadn't really thought to connect it to transits, and I'm going to do that now.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's such a good way to like get a direct experience. And you don't even have to talk to anybody about it. So it also just like it'll prove itself.
Yeah.
And it becomes undeniable, and it builds like this like confidence through competence through direct experience.
So cool. So helpful.
Mm.
Do you find your work tends to be more supportive, preventative, or do you feel like it's split the difference?
Yeah. It's more splitting differences between you're my last hope, Hail Mary, medical astrologer dude, and supportive. And then like, I mean, more and more people are coming for preventative,
Hmm.
but preventative is definitely the least for sure. But
Oh,
yeah, but I mean, as I've gotten more, guess I could call it popular, I would definitely say less people are coming to me just for like the last Hail Mary. But for a while in my practice, it was literally just like genetic issues or like chronic issues, or I've gone and seen 25 people. Let's hope you can help me out, kind of thing. So yeah, but mostly supportive, I would say. Yeah, mostly supportive now, especially.
As one of those people who has also been looking at your books and being like, I should book a session to find out what's going on with my mystery illnesses. How do you approach, I guess, like maybe the pressure that might put on you, or like how does that? How do you handle that? Because I have had my own version of that with clients too, where it's like, okay, I really want to help, but also it's a big thing, and sometimes there's not a lot that can be done.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Yeah, I love this question. So the answer is always depends for me. However, what I would say is that being able to validate the person and their experience is like the first thing always, because oftentimes when people are going to a bunch of different doctors, especially like mostly the people they're going to doctors, the doctor knows it all, and or they're like, you should do this, even though like it's experimental or whatever, you know. And so being able to look at the chart and at least give them some more clarity on why it's happening is like my first stance always. So giving people validation to allow them to feel more supported, because that means I'm already on their team and they are healing in that moment.
Mm.
And so I approach it from that perspective. And then from there, every situation is different. And I also would say, make a really fucking good resource list. Like just having like people that I can refer out to people who do very specific things. And then also being mindful that in our current space and time, I'm on a team. I'm always on a team. Like, so somebody has a acupuncturist, and so they come to me for a medical astrology reading, and maybe they already are getting herbs. Maybe they already have a doctor. Maybe they have a doctor and an acupuncturist, but nobody's working with them on movement. Maybe they have a therapist and an acupuncturist, but nobody's working with them on herbs, you know? So I get in where I fit in, and I just try to really ask people, like, what can I do to like set myself in a position to be best of service in this conversation? Because a lot of times there's so many things going on with people who have chronic illnesses.
I love this. And I love that you've name dropped so many people that you love and admire and work with throughout this interview. Um, really the through line of all of the people that we speak with is that they're working with clients that have a curiosity about themselves, and they're working with that network, and everyone has this team. And I think that's so beautiful. But at the end of the day, we have to take care of ourselves. So do you have any tools that you use for your own divination and healing when it's time for Cameron?
Yeah, absolutely. Silence is my best friend. Like I was saying, like I like to empty a lot. Um, but yeah, so silence, movement, those are my top two. Sitting at my altar, that's always a go-to as well. Cleansing, make sure my feet are cleansed, making sure that I just like cleanse myself in general, making sure that I'm not trying to be a superhero because I'm not one, and just like learning day to day, yeah, how to be more supportive for other people, but also allowing like the energy to move through me and not like get stuck. Um, yeah, so yeah, Kundalini yoga is nice. That's always good, which will include movement, of course. Herbs, of course, always supportive. Just going and putting my feet on the ground. But yeah, these days it's mostly movement. Yeah, I mean, I work with crystals too. There's certain crystals that I work with that are like some of my super homies that have been with me throughout this whole process. So I lean on their guidance even more than like I just use it for like, oh, this one's for protection. I'm like, no, this is the one that tells me what I need to do when I'm done with the session. So doing that. I also used to do this thing all the time. I haven't been doing it lately, but when I would get out of a session, or if I had like a lot of sessions, as I was done, I would say a prayer, and then I would just literally just jump up and down around the room like an animal and just like shake it off, because they have the intelligence of like, you know, when a cat comes around a corner, when a dog comes around a corner and you scare them, they just shake. They just literally shake it off. And so I would just jump up and down and just, yeah, get the shaking and kind of let it off. So those are the things that I like to do the most.
That's awesome. I have a mini trampoline for that reason, for the low impact to shake it off.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. Yeah, it just lets the energy stay in motion so I don't get the emotion trapped in my own body.
Yeah, it's so great. How can people best support your work and work with you?
Yeah, so people could best support my work by booking mentorship sessions or like development, personal development or mentorship sessions. That's how you could best support my work, to be quite honest, right now, especially because I'm wrapping up Ayurveda school in the next little while. But then even literally today, like when I get off of here, I'm going in to sign up for a Greco-Arabic Medicine school, which is like a 3-year program. So yeah, you could book a session. You could follow me on Instagram at cadream6. You can hop on my newsletter and stay up to date with all the things that are coming out moving forward. Yeah, I think those are the ways. You can email me and you can tell me that you want to support my work, and I'll give you other ways to support my work as well. Always open to that. And always just like sharing my stories when I post things online. It's always super helpful. More exposure I get, the more I can help people and the more resources I accumulate and can share with the world.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This has been such a fun chat and we learned so much. We were really excited to dive in.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us. This was amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate y'all. And thanks everybody for listening too as well.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us in the immaterial world. While you're here, we hope you subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite streaming services. The real magic is in connection and community. Share your favorite episode with friends and come follow us for more on Instagram at Immaterial World Pod and Patreon at patreon.com/Immaterial World.
I like to see you shining. Show me all your dreams. You're a special kind of magic. Show me all your favorite things. You're pretty like a sunset. You're pretty like a pearl. You're a special kind of magic. Dancing in a crazy swirl. In a crazy swirl. Immaterial world, come meet me in the immaterial world. As far as the galaxy goes, we're flying in the immaterial world. Immaterial world, come meet me in the immaterial world. Your mind, your body and soul, delighted in the immaterial world. The immaterial world. The immaterial world.
Immaterial World is hosted by Jessica Richards and Jasmina Von Kila. Music and editing by Dia Luna. Artwork by Lane Friend. Follow Immaterial World Pod on Instagram and Patreon at patreon.com/immaterialworld. You can visit our website at www.immaterial-world.com or email us at immaterialworldpod@gmail.com. Thank you for being part of our immaterial world.
Welcome to the immaterial world.